Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel, even during the offseason, our numbers are still climbing. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me for another podcast, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, here for another Lookahead Series podcast on a Carolina basketball player. We're going to be rolling these out throughout the offseason. If you guys haven't heard about what we're doing, every Monday is a look ahead article on a particular player. Every Wednesday, we're putting out the 5 best games from last season. And then on Friday, we will put out the podcast. We ran RJ Davis last week, did 3 pieces on that, including the podcast. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I'll have a playlist as well for our Look Ahead Series podcast. You can find that on our YouTube channel. And of course, we're here to talk about Leaky Black in this one. If you haven't seen the stuff that was put out on Monday and Wednesday, click the link below to head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com after this video is done. AJ, before we dive into Leaky Black here, though, I want to give a shout out to our very special sponsor on this one, MyPerfectFranchise.net. Guys, prices are going crazy right now. We're in a tough times financially across the country, and who knows what the job market is going to look like in the future. But with MyPerfectFranchise.net, you can take control of your own career path. Andy Ludicky is a longtime Rivals member, and he's a college football fan, a huge Mac Brown fan as well, and a franchise veteran. If using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough and free consultation process. So guys, if you want to reach out to Andy, call him. It's 100% free, and you can put your life and career in your own hands by starting a franchise. And if you do call him, if you do talk to Andy, make sure you let him know that THI sent you, and you guys can check him out again at myperfectfranchise.net. Really excited to be partnered with them. And, Andy's doing some really, really awesome things for people, changing their career path, giving them control over what they want to do. And it's such a great time to do so with just the uncertainty of everything going on right now. So awesome company, awesome organization. And like I said, one we're super excited to be partnered with. Okay, AJ, it's Leaky Black time. Time to chat about Leaky Black a little bit in this one. Before we dive into a little bit more of the nitty gritty, some of the numbers from last season, what are your overall thoughts looking back? Obviously, Leaky going into his 5th year this year, decided to come back for another season when, probably could have gone on to the, professional ranks and played somewhere. When you look back at Leaky Black's career and looking back at his, year in particular last year, what are your overall thoughts on, the career that Leaky's had? You've obviously got to cover him, the whole way as well.
I've covered his whole career. The other day, Carolina basketball tweeted out some photos of summer workouts, and some of the pros are back. Juwan Williams, who recently retired, hell of a guy. Loved covering him. I guess he'll probably be around a lot, which would be neat. And have a chance to run into Juwan at some point. Wayne Ellington, some other guys. Yeah. And there was a picture of Leaky by himself. It looked like maybe like he was just going back on D or something, right? Not busting down the court, just going back on D, and he had a look, like kind of a smile on his face. Someone had said something, he's laughing. I don't know what it was. But I looked at that photo, and all good thoughts, man. Think what you want about how the NCAA handled COVID. Think what you want about the transfer portal and NIL and all those kind of things. Now, people are voicing concerns over college sports. People are highly critical of college sports because there does need to be a more uniform leadership for college basketball. There needs to be a separate one for college football. That all that stuff I think will work itself out over time. But Leaky Black is an example that not everything is worth criticizing in college sports right now. It is a beautiful thing that this young man, who is a phenomenal representative of this school, of the program, of his family, he's just a wonderful guy, has another year to impact Carolina basketball and to impact himself, his own personal life. And I don't think it's, he's just getting a 5th year. It's not fair. Other guys never got 5th years. He didn't play much as a true freshman. That was a really good team in 19. That was the #1 seed. Kobe White, Cam Johnson, Luke May, Kenny Williams, you go on and on. That was a really good team. If they don't get Nasir Little, if they don't get sick, if they're not violently ill, and guys were in Kansas City, I heard a couple of players throwing up in the locker room after the game. If that team's not violently ill, maybe they get to the Final Four that year. Who knows? But he was on that team, and he got hurt in Atlanta. in January of that year and only played a few minutes when he eventually came back. So he didn't have a full year, not even close to it. So I look at this as sort of like a redshirt senior year for Leaky. And I think it's a phenomenal thing that he had this opportunity and that he took it, because he will be a tremendous asset to this team. He improved this past season from the year before tremendously in all areas. The efficiency of his game was off the charts. And a big part of it was something we talked about last offseason, Jacob, and David and I did as well. I kept saying, he's not going to be asked to do as much scoring, shooting, too much ball handling that he was the year before, because the team the year before was a bit discombobulated. They weren't very good at getting their own shots. So Leaky was forced to take shots he wasn't going to have to on this particular team. And the best example that he didn't have to take a bunch of bad shots this year out of necessity, his free throw numbers were almost in half. So he wasn't getting fouled a lot in shooting situations because he wasn't taking those kinds of shots. He was taking more open shots. He was taking shots out of the offense, the putbacks, the cut, the kick out for the three. And he had a stretch in the season where he hit quite a few threes. So he was actually shooting over 40% from three going into March, and then struggled. But lo and behold, there he was against Duke, popped a few threes, a couple of threes in that game that were obviously huge. So I love the fact that he's still around. National championship teams need guys like Leaky Black. You know, we can talk about other Carolina teams that had intangible guys and they won titles. Leaky could be that kind of guy. The maturity factor, it's going to be a mature team, but it never hurts to have a guy like him give you even more gravitas. And when they take the court next year in a lot of games, they're going to be significantly more experienced and more mature than the teams that they're playing. And it's going to help them get through some games where they're just maybe not as dialed in, maybe they're just not as effective that night. And having guys like Leaky, his standard, his give, what he gives to the game and gives to his team is going to be a huge, huge part of whatever success this team has.
Agreed. I kind of, after the year he had last year as well with Carolina's run, I kind of viewed him as kind of the glue guy for last year's team, because he wasn't a guy that was going to necessarily fill up the stat sheet, but he was going to guard the other team's best player. He was going to play really good defense consistently against him too. It's not like you're just putting him up there to, play okay. He proved time and time again over the years that he can guard the best players in the country and shut them down. In particular, last year, he was fantastic in a handful of games at doing that. So I think that's such a positive thing that he brings along with his experience. And AJ, I want to talk too about something that stands out about him statistically from last year compared to his other years. And bear with me for a second. Played 38 games last year, 29.7 minutes per, 4.9 points, 4.3 rebounds, 2.7 assists, and shot 46.6% from the floor. And AJ, that shooting percentage stands out to me, because if you go look at his other seasons at Carolina, let's go back to his junior year. Last year was his senior year, technically. Averaged 5.6 points, but shot 36.7%. Previous year, averaged the same amount of minutes in 2019, 2020 as a sophomore, averaged 6.5 points, but an even lower shooting percentage at 35.9%. So looking at last year, 4.9 points, his second ever lowest scoring average in his time at Carolina, but he shot 46.6%, which is second highest shooting percentage in his year at Carolina. And it's just 0.3 less than his freshman season when he only played 10 minutes per. So really, when you look at it in terms of how many games he played and how many minutes, technically his best shooting year last year. And that, to me, AJ, shows a guy that was comfortable in his role and knew what his role was. He wasn't a guy that was putting up a ton of shots. He wasn't a guy that was forcing his shot anymore. He looked like a guy who was told, hey, look, from Hubert Davis, hey, look, I don't need you to be a scorer. We've got guys, RJ Davis, Caleb Love, Armando Bacot, and Brady Manek, that can fill up the stat sheet. Your role is to be a lockdown defender, facilitate the ball, and take shots and hit shots when you have the opportunity. And that, to me, was the sign of growth in Leaky last year. Is he took better shots. He took a lot less shots, but he hit a higher percentage of them because the shots he was taking was shots he felt comfortable taking. And it wasn't like he was forcing up 10, 15 shots a game. Carolina didn't need him to do that. And I think that's such a cool part about seeing Leaky Black's growth through the years, is just him becoming more comfortable in his role, not forcing shots when he doesn't need to, and instead doing other things on the courts that might not show up on the stat sheet, but are just as important to the team as a whole. And that, to me, like I said, is really where Leaky kind of shined last year in my eyes and really grew as a player from what else we've seen throughout his career at Carolina.
That's exactly what I was saying a few minutes ago. And a guy like Leaky Black, who is the consummate role player, glue guy, do the dirty work guy, lockdown defender guy, offside rebounder kind of guy, he needs to be that guy. When you ask him to be something different, then you don't ask a wide receiver to block down as a tight end. So that's who he is. 2 years ago, he was asked to be something at times that was out of that box, if you will. Mm-hmm. As a freshman, as a sophomore, he was on that team that was a mess. He played point guard for 7 straight games, started at the point, and did a pretty solid job. I'll tell you what, to me, this personifies Leaky Black. Caleb Love's shot over Mark Williams will go down in Carolina lore as one of the great shots of all time. It is already, you don't have to look hard to find people posting it all over social media.
I'll throw that photo in here as well.
Yeah, it's for sale. There's all kinds of stuff that people have used the image for to make money. Hopefully Caleb's getting a lot of that. But there should be a second photo that goes with that. Right before the shot, who sets the screen to free him up? Leaky Black.
Leaky Black.
Watch that video. Now, the job that Leaky did setting that screen, some people say, hey, he kind of moved a little bit. I love the toughness there, because when Leaky came to Carolina, there was a tag of finesse. But he's a tough dude. And that was a physical screen he set, and it was a necessary screen he set. And to me, that personifies his value to the team. If Leaky has to take a tough shot, which he did a couple times early in that game, he hit a 3 in each half. He's going to take it, and he can knock it down. And I'll tell you another thing. And if he's got to set the screen, if he's got to make the pass, if he's got to get the rebound, he had double-figure rebound games, et cetera. So Leaky's going to do what he needs to do. But I'll tell you another part about this past year, the team's growth and improvement. Leaky had that really good stretch from mid-January toward the end of February where he was hitting shots. Mm-hmm. Like I said, he was shooting over 40% from 3. One of the things we said last offseason when we were previewing the year was, okay, well, if Leaky's going to be a 30-minute guy, he's got to do something to force defenses to guard him. Early in the year, defenses were guarding him. I remember sitting up there in the Mohegan Sun, the pressure was kind of high up and kind of a different vantage point. And some of us were talking about how, like, they're not even guarding Leaky. Leaky's over here, and there's nobody from Tennessee, nobody from Purdue within 20 feet of him, right? Well, look at that same offensive sets in February. People are guarding him. So what does that mean? Carolina's three-point shooting got worse later in the year. But the team was playing better because those driving lanes opened up. That guy that was on Leaky that was helping out defensively earlier couldn't help out as much. He had to come from further away. It wasn't working because Leaky forced teams to guard him as well. When they went into their scouting report before the game, they didn't ignore the fact that he would be on the floor. They couldn't ignore it. And that was a tremendous boost to the team, and it helped everybody. So that cannot be discounted. And just the efficiency of the dirty work, that screen to me, that should also be in Carolina lore, because without the screen, the shot doesn't occur. Mm-hmm. So
sure.
This is a guy who I think fans kind of changed their tune about him, which is good, and they should have. And he has a chance to really, really find a comfortable spot in Carolina fans' hearts in perpetuity this season, if this team achieves what it can achieve, and if he has the kind of year, a Leaky Black year, that a lot of people believe Leaky Black can have, which is all those things we've talked about. Doesn't have to really score a whole lot more, but if he's setting those key screens, if he's making the key pass, if he's getting those rip and run rebounds and getting them into break, and I do think they're going to transition more this year, all those kinds of things, people are going to look back. They look back at Dudley Bradley very fondly. They can look back at Leaky Black in the same kind of way.
Yeah. AJ, real quickly before we wrap this one up, last thing, I want to just look ahead to next year. Do you think his role really changes from last year's team when you look at who's coming back, or is it kind of what he excelled at last year is probably what Carolina and Hubert Davis is going to need him to excel at this year? Same role, just be better at it, be more consistent. His shooting did drop in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, it did. He had a couple of goose eggs. They do need
And it's different. The NCAA tournament's different than the regular season. You know, if you could watch film of NCAA tournament games, if you could wipe away the NCAA logo everywhere and just kind of, okay, let's place this in somebody's home court or just a traditional neutral site in the summer, you realize, boy, those are different games. And the paces are different. The approaches are different. Everybody's a little bit tighter. Everybody defends a little bit better. Everybody boxes out at a higher percentage. So all that stuff is done. He needs to be able to give them a little bit more. They did not shoot a high percentage for the most part in the tournament. They were way down with their 3-point shots. So you need to be able to guard all 5 to win a tournament. They lost the championship by 3 points. They got some points out of his spot because he actually had the foul trouble, and Puff came in and Puff gave them some points and kind of kept them in it. You need a little bit more from him in certain situations offensively, and just, you know, just a better version of Leaky. You need a better version of Armando. You need a better version of Caleb. You need a better version of RJ. You need a better version of Leaky, Puff, Dontrez, go on down the line. Mm-hmm. So they need to win a national championship. They didn't have enough to do that this past year because they didn't do it. Otherwise, they would have won it. So they need a little bit more. So I think it'll be the same role. Just go from an A performance to an A+ performance, and that might be enough.
Agreed. And having a guy like Leaky on your team, you look at some of the young freshmen coming in, you look at the guys who are returning, having a guy like Leaky, a been there, done that guy, a leader, a guy that's been around the program through ups and downs, some of the biggest ups and downs we've seen in recent years for Carolina basketball. Having a guy like him around for another national championship push, I think, is incredibly important. And I think it's something not only his teammates are excited about, but the Carolina coaches are got to be thrilled about as well. Because if you can have a guy like Leaky out there, especially what he does on defense and what he proved he can do last year offensively, you got to be feeling pretty good about that. So good place to wrap this one up, AJ. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Yet another episode of our Look Ahead series. Again, guys, we're going to be rolling these out for the next few weeks, looking at a few months, I should say, looking at a handful of Carolina basketball players that are returning. The first week we did RJ Davis, and this week we're running out Leaky Black. Make sure you guys go to Tar Heel Illustrated, link in the description below, and check out the articles that AJ ran on Monday and Wednesday about Leaky. And if you guys are excited about Leaky returning to Carolina for a 5th season and think he can be a key cog in Carolina's national championship push this year, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a like on this video. Let's see how many we can get on this one. Again, guys, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well. Check out my perfect franchise, if I can get that out, .net. I'll put the link in the description below. Hit up Andy if you want to take control of your own career. And if you click the link, it'll take you right over there to get in contact with Andy. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.